Oh, shit, sorry. One sec. I will turn off. There we go. But welcome to the opening round here in LSR Group 1, season number 12. Starting off our season in Spa-Francorchamps here. And should be getting ready to go here in just a couple of seconds. Trying to make sure that we don't have any disconnects. Again, we got another countdown here. But yeah, bit of a scramble to get going. We are a little bit late. Zrosky, hopefully you are doing well. That's a new one. That is certainly a new one. Apologies here as well as trying to get a couple of drivers in here last minute. Trying to get RCC Giannis, of course, last season's Group 2 champ in here, who I am not seeing is online right now, which is concerning. So we're going to try and hurry through here, see if I can't find him. This is always a fun way to open up these streams, is by looking through my friends list. Where is Giannis? Why am I not seeing Giannis? Okay, that's concerning. We should have 20 drivers, hopefully, but at least we'll have at least 18. Where is Giannis? Oh, there he is. There he is. Finally, he shows up. All right, but yeah, getting underway here. Of course, short quality here, and we'll go ahead and throw up lap data. We'll throw up the full track map, and we will get underway. We got Aston Martin leading us out of the pits. It's actually Orenberg on. So we'll wait and see there. But yeah, again, apologies. Trying to make sure that Giannis gets in. Hey, Owen, hopefully you are doing well. I know that Group 4, which obviously had its debut this week, got started a little bit late, so we might have a little bit of an overlap. So hopefully it didn't break, and we do have multiple streams up at the same time. So, of course, Spot, very, very iconic circuit, very fun circuit to drive. Of course, yeah, a bunch of flat, fast-flowing sections. Of course, yeah, again, very famous. You, of course, got all sorts of motor racing that goes on at this circuit, and, of course, is the longest circuit on the F1 calendar, which leads it to being the shortest race in terms of laps that you will see this season, outside of course, the one sprint race that we have scheduled. It's only 22 laps from start to finish, but again, with an over 5-mile lap, still going to be a very long one and very interesting one. There's the first of our Mercedes that hopefully will join. We'll be waiting on BXT. Bernat hopefully be the other one. But again, one sec, I will actually ping the Spaniard, so that way we know when he is all set. Ain't B-Tom in V-Carb? Yes, so B-Tom is in the V-Carb. It was a bit of a scramble here to get the rest of the way ready. So to give a little bit of our numbers here, so Kendricks will be scoring points for Ferrari, whereas B-Tom will be scoring for his team of V-Carb. That'll be just a little bit of a difference to keep in mind. Again, just some scramble, getting ready to go. B-Tom didn't show up technically until about 5 minutes late. Of course, they're riding on a no rouge there. We got Orenberg with a invalidation. So I believe it's the Haas behind him on the first proper push lap, and that's Mahmudev, who's blasting down into the chicane of what is 4, 5, and 6. That's okay. It was a bit confusing. Of course, I'm pulling one-man show here. No stratting available, so he was busy. Into turn 7 now. Very tricky downhill hairpin here. Really easy to run a little bit wide, lose a couple of tenths here, and then, really tricky to get on the power as well. Of course, attacking the curbs, attacking the grass even, is the Haas driver. You can see the Williams behind him also pushing very, very hard, trying to get the first valid lap times on the board. So again, Mudev continuing to push. BXT is joining apparently as well, so I will send him the invite, and then we will have 20 drivers here. Actually, I believe he is in, so hopefully there is BXT. But 114.6 through 2 sectors from Mudev through that much more technical middle sector. I believe the Williams behind made a mistake, meanwhile. I believe B-Tom as well. Full push behind. But Mudev will be the first driver to put a representative lap time on the board here. As he blasts down into the bus stop chicane now. Pretty smooth through there. A little bit of a wiggle getting on the power, though, and power to the line. It's going to be a 42.4 for Mudev, so a very solid first lap time. B-Tom, of course, is pushing away as he makes his way through the Senna. This is, of course, the multi-time Group 1 champ. See if anybody can see him this season, but already he's about a second clear of any driver behind him. 41.449 for B-Tom as he looks to try and repeat once again as Group 1 champ. But, of course, a number of drivers going to make sure that he doesn't have the opportunity to do that. There's one of the Mercedes joining. That's Giannis able to take control. Got Vanzantino, meanwhile, making his way in the Alpine, and there is our 20th driver as BXT joins. Lurka, meanwhile, goes to the top. First driver into the 40s. It's a 49.98 for the Williams, a 41.9 for Vanzantino's Alpine, meanwhile. Puts him in third. We got another Haas coming to the line. I believe it's Crazy Riatudo just starting his lap. You got Hogrider in that Chrome McLaren. McLaren at a bit of risk for both of their drivers in real life. Falling out of that Drivers' Championship fight, and Hogrider's first effort, 42.1. So still a good chunk off of that first lap time from Lurko, which is an absolute scorcher. But we'll see if anybody can match that. Vanzantino, meanwhile, that's Vanzantino, and I believe that is... Who was that? That was Crazy Riatudo and Mudev with a collision. That looked to be through Radion and Eau Rouge there. So not sure what happened there. But an early incident in this season, Crazy Riatudo was out without a wing coming down the Kemmel Straight. So already a bit of chaos going on there. Meanwhile, Hiname jumped up into third. Juramelin into fourth for Sauber. Of course, VMB Indian on his debut was jumped up into fifth, of course, in his reserve duty for Red Bull here. So a number of drivers looking to perform very well. That's Fight Me Now bot jumping up into second. And a number of drivers coming behind him. I believe that is one of the Aston Martins to the left. No, I believe that was... Who was that was just coming to finish their lap there? I believe... Oh, that was Froggy Boggy getting a lap on the board. He's going to line up in 10th. Jordan, meanwhile, who again will be B-Tom's teammate. Actually, I'm going to make a note of this in the Group 1 chat right now. There we go. Just wanted to make note of that, partially for myself. But of course, one of the V-Carb drivers of Jordan making his way through Sector 2 now. Again, very comfortable through what, again, is a very tricky chicane. Again, towards the end of Sector 2, you're going to see a lot of single-file racing through that middle sector. A lot of that passing on this circuit going to be seen down the Kemmel Straight. And again, it's going to be almost certainly one-stop strategies for the entirety of this Route 1 grid. It's going to be an interesting... Their drivers want to go medium to hard or hard to medium, as I think that's a really interesting way of looking at it. Meanwhile, Jordan, coming through the final couple of corners, he'll push towards the line. And Jordan will only go 13th fastest for the moment, so not the greatest lap. From Jordan, Giannis, meanwhile, of course, will be pushing his way. Of course, we've also got an Aston Martin off. But Giannis, of course, Group 2 champion last year in rather convincing fashion as well. So and had a number of good races up in Group 1. So I'd imagine, we're going to see Giannis be very, very impressive with pace over the course of this season. I think, of course, the level of competition is, kind of almost worlds above here in Group 1, even compared to Group 2. Which still has gotten very, very fast. Which, of course, you'll see that group's debut tomorrow. As Giannis making his way through Sector 2, past one of the McLarens. William Houlihan, meanwhile, also in his debut as a full-time driver, stopped in the ninth. So, solid first lap there. But Giannis continuing to make his way. We'll jump on board with the Mercedes. Of course, you want to really carry fourth gear through here. Kind of get that upshift to limit some of that wheel spin. Again, continue to push hard. You want to carry as much speed as possible because you're really going to see only 1-0, sometimes 2-0 wings here on this circuit, just because of how long some of the straights are, especially in Sector 1 and 3, where there's really only one braking zone. You're going to really want to take the lowest wings possible in order to maximize that opportunity. 8 minutes, 30 seconds left to go. Here comes Giannis for his first qualifying lap. As a full-time Group 1 driver, Giannis crosses the line. He'll slot into 11th for the moment, 42.450. Again, expect Giannis to have a lot of strength, especially in racecraft. That's where he really started to pull away over the course of last season. Beaton, meanwhile, I believe on a bit of an outlap. Yeah, certainly down on that first lap. So we'll see. Is anybody else really on a representative push lap? Jordan is on another push lap on what I believe are a bit older soft tires. Yeah, Jordan's taking another run on that same compound. So Jordan thinking, take heavy fuel, get accustomed to the circuit. And that might be something we're seeing from a couple of drivers, is take that heavier fuel to, again, just get accustomed to the track, fall into a rhythm. Track evolution is very big in qualifying in this game. So that's going to be something to consider as this session goes along. But it is still Lurka with about a 10th-and-a-half edge over Fight Me Now Bot for second place. Again, you got a number of drivers looking to make their way across. Bobby Lyons underway. Crazy Riatudo getting underway with the second attempt after the incident on his first push lap left him without a front wing. Van Zentino is underway, but will sit with the provisional pole sitter as of right now of Lurka. Again, a very, very good first lap. You can see running very low fuel loads already is the Williams. Only a lap left in the tank. Again, and of course, it is a very long lap here around Spa. So if you run out of fuel up at the top of the hill, again, because of how the game works, you can continue this first sector time. But again, you're going to keep pushing hard. You can see really all these Group 1 drivers really attacking all of the curbs they can get away with, utilizing every last ounce of track. And that's, going to be very key, especially in a game where dirty air is so much more of a factor to try and jump further up the grid. Just blasting down the circuit now. Of course, Fight Me Now Bot is underway, as is Kaname, as is Jerome. So we'll see if anybody a little bit further back can put together a little bit of momentum, try and jump up the field. Lurka through Sector 2, and this is, Sector 2 is where you're really going to gain and lose the most amount of time, and Lurka is slightly up on that first lap. He, of course, may have to manage the traffic of the Alpine out in front of him, which you can see on that mini-map. I believe that was Bobby Lyons just jumping up into 6th for Red Bull. So a very solid lap from him. Crazy Riatudo about to head to the line as well. He'll go 16th fastest. Lurka, meanwhile, through the final corners into the line. You can see the Alpine ahead of him of Van Zantino, third quickest. And Lurka goes that little bit faster. It's only by half a tenth, but still enough to jump up the board. 40.953 is the margin right now. Fight Me Now Bot, meanwhile, in the gravel slightly, but still up a tenth. Big wiggle there. He'll go in the gravel again, and that's going to be a lost lap time for Fight Me Now Bot, who's certainly in the fight. But a bit of a mistake there means that he will lose that lap. Kaname, meanwhile, has gotten underway. Jerome Mellon, meanwhile, up 0.3 through 2 sectors. So could the Sauber potentially have something to say about this front row? Big lockup there coming into the bus stop, but controls it very nicely. Here comes the Sauber pushing the line. Can he jump up towards the front of the grid? He'll go third fastest. So very comfortable there. His teammate, meanwhile, MK7 Hitch, will head to the lines. Currently 14th, but not going to improve on that go of things. So he'll stay there for the moment. Orabang, meanwhile, 16th fastest, as he'll look to continue on. Milano, meanwhile, again, trying to put his first effort on the board. Here he comes through the final couple of corners. There's Hassoff at the end of Sector 3. Milano, meanwhile, will only go 18th fastest for the moment. And again, you're going to be seeing a lot of bigger gaps here at Spa just due to how long this circuit is. I think, as the season progresses, as we get some of these shorter circuits, of course, you'll naturally see that gap start to close up a little bit, especially as drivers start to get into the flow of things as well. But he's still got a pretty tight field. Top 9 separated by... Actually, no. Top chunk is still pretty spread out from the rest. But, got the top 6 separated by half a second. And then, again, still stays pretty close further down the grid. And again, a lot of these drivers will see exactly how fast they are. And, of course, we're missing a few drivers today. Of course, Mango has currently the world record. Baku among them. But B-Tom blasting his way down to the bus stop, up 3.5 tenths through his first 2 sectors. And, of course, just one braking zone left to go now for the man in the Ferrari today. But, of course, will be in the V-Carb seat once we actually post the results. B-Tom out of the final corner to the line. It's not going to be enough for provisional pole. He's still a 10th back of Lurka. So, again, another nice improvement for B-Tom, but it's still not quite enough. And, of course, B-Tom's going to have to hustle that car around. We got a yellow flag due to Jerome Mellon being out of fuel. So we can't see exactly how much time is left on the board. But Froggy Boggy out on an early outlap. We got a number of other drivers making their ways out. And you can see the flood out of the pits getting underway. So I think certainly you got to ask, has B-Tom given himself enough time, or is B-Tom out of time? Again, that yellow flag is still out. Go to Giannis. Jerome Mellon thinks he's out of the session. We'll go to Giannis, thank you. He's up 1.5 tenths through Sector 1. So Jerome Mellon will not improve from 4th. I believe B-Tom will not improve from 2nd. But Giannis continuing to push here. Again, currently sits in 12th. About 1.5 seconds adrift of provisional pole. In what will likely be his final lap. Again, continuing to use all that track, getting out to a little bit of that AstroTurf, up 3.5 tenths now. And of course, it's flat all the way to the line. Hitch will retire from the session, so he will not improve. BXT, meanwhile, does not look like he'll be setting a qualifying lap. But Giannis pushing down the backside of this circuit. Trying to rush a little bit of a lock on that outside front tire. But Giannis, of course, is BXT's teammate. Giannis to the line, 8th fastest, so a very solid lap time. Gets him within a second of that provisional pole. And slotting into 8th on what is your full-time Group 1 debut. Certainly a very good showing. Froggy Boggy, meanwhile, I think that was up over, I'm not sure if that was 3 tenths or what exactly that was. But Froggy Boggy making his way down the backside of the circuit for Williams. B-Tom may actually have enough fuel left. Actually, no, B-Tom is out of fuel. You can see him. He is the cause of those yellow flags. It's Fight Me Now bot, who's just gotten underway. But Froggy Boggy now dealing with a little bit of traffic. Got an Aston Martin out ahead of him, and it's caught him in a poor time. But, again, good job by both drivers managing that traffic. I believe that was Orabang diving out of the way. But, again, Froggy Boggy now blasting down into the bus stop chicane at the end of the lap. B-Tom will retire, so again, he will not improve from 2nd. And there's an Alpine in the way, just trying to get that lap started. And for the 2nd time today, I'm not sure if that was Vanzantino or Kaname. I believe that was Vanzantino getting in the way, trying to get himself some space. So that will almost certainly go to review by the stewards. But again, it's a 2nd incident there. Froggy Boggy will not improve. Fight Me Now bot, though. One sec, I gotta, we'll stay on board with him. I'm gonna have to be quiet for a second, but Milano Orenberg, BXT's qualifyings are all over as well. Excuse me, I'm just trying to... Alright, but Fight Me Now bot. Coming to the end of his lap. Kind of missed his sector times here, as I apologize. I did remind the drivers. And here comes Fight Me Now bot. He'll steal provisional pole at the death. Improves by 2 tenths, but Lurka's improving. He's up 1/10 through Sector 1 as he continued that strength through Sector 2. He's up 1.7. So again, just one braking zone left to go. And Lurka with a very good chance at stealing pole away here. Lurka has been on provisional pole for pretty much the entire session, except for right now. He's got to get it done through the bus stop chicane for the final time. Indian goes 5th. Bobby gonna not improve. Lurka steals provisional pole back, and it should be, I believe, the Williams on pole. There's still Vanzantino and Kaname set to come to the line. Vanzantino will come 5th. Here comes Kaname through the final corner. And can Kaname do anything about provisional pole? He cannot. He'll slot into 4th. But it will be Lurka here in the opening round, starting at the front of the grid here in Spa. And it doesn't take the rain this time for the Williams to be on the front row. And of course, we will have a quick 2-minute break in between qualifying and the race. And of course, Vanzantino as well. That was the second incident he had in that session, as he picked up a 5-place grid penalty for an incident earlier. So we'll be dropped back. But top 10 separated by a second. And of course, still a lot of drivers that could come from further down the grid to have a very good showing. So again, that will bump Hogrider up into the top 10, and everybody ahead of him up a spot. But again, Lurka is the first driver to score as well, as we do have a 0.4 pole position. And so we got an early championship lead for Williams. So again, brief 2-minute break here. I'm going to start my timer. Again, all drivers, if you are listening, please be sure to be ready, just in case somebody does ready up accidentally. But I will give the ready up command when we're all set. But as I said during qualifying, it is really going to be just a one-stop race in the absence of safety cars. I believe hard to medium is the technically faster strategy. But again, it depends really on how much, on the pack spread as this race commences. Again, looks like it will be a completely dry race, so that's not going to be a concern for any of our drivers. But again, the mediums, especially compared to the hards, I think you can really keep with a lot of the drivers in front. Perhaps if you're starting a little bit further back and you think you have more pace, you can be racy with some of those medium drivers on that first stint. Somebody did ready up, sadly. So we will be getting underway here. So there is the countdown. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 lights. And we're underway here in Spawn. Everybody gets rolling, except for the McLaren of Hogrider, unfortunately, but seemingly through clean. Big lockup from Fight Me Now bot on the outside as we make our way through turn number 1. Seemingly everybody through okay, but it's still Lurka in the lead from Fight Me Now bot as we head through Radion and Eau Rouge for the first time. You can see all the cars spreading out as they blast up the hill as they make their way through for the first time. Again, you can see everybody really scrambling there in the background. But single file down into the chicane. Fight Me Now bot, though, looking around the outside of the Williams. You got Jerome Mellon looking to the inside of B-Tom. Fight Me Now bot backs out. Jerome Mellon tries to stick it in there, but unable to make it stick. That's great from Lurka on the open of that race to get done. Taking a look as there is my timer that I've accidentally set. We're making our way through Sector 2 now. Again, field going to start to spread out a little bit. Kaname and Orenberg starting on the hard, so we'll be sure to keep an eye on them as this race continues. But a number of drivers really not wanting to lose places off of the start, and will now pull away. Indian and Lions, meanwhile, battling a little bit there in the background. You got Bobby trying to put it to the inside of his teammate and gets it done. So a bold move from Bobby to get back past his teammate here on the opening lap. Again, still lots of racing left to go, and we'll see how aggressive Bobby continues to be as now he tries to hunt down Jerome Mellon, who I could be mispronouncing as well. Orenberg, meanwhile, has not had a great start. He's dropped to 20th, so Aston Martin at the back of the field right now, but we'll come to the end of lap 1, and it's a big dive to the inside from Bobby. What a move there. Very bold, and I think Jerome saw that coming. It's a great move from Bobby here on the opening lap. Bobby goes defensive here on Jerome, a little bit of contact. But seemingly, no major damage done. BXT, meanwhile, has gotten caught up in an incident coming down that back straight as he's fallen off the pack, but it's still Lurka in the lead as we start lap number 2, but Fight Me Now Bot all over the back of him, and DRS, of course, going to be activated here on the Kemmel straight. Lurka going to go a little bit wide. Milano picks up a time penalty. Here comes B-Tom as well. And they're going to go 3 wide here into turn number 2 as we get into the braking zone. It's going to be Fight Me Now Bot who comes out in the lead. It's going to be Lurka who's going to have to slot into P2. B-Tom unwilling, to risk going to the inside there, making it 3 abreast through the braking zone, which really would not have worked. So it's a great move there from Bot with DRS to take the lead. And it's our first lead change so far in this race. Again, number of battles going on up at the front. You can see everybody, of course, going single file through this middle sector. Is everybody going to continue to push hard here? Again, the goal here was really just trying to stick with the pack. So take a look at the possible race strategies. Again, we're seeing mediums hard for most of the grid, and you can see when that window is going to open around lap 9 or 10. Again, especially if you're sitting in the dirty air, those mediums have a real big shot at falling off that little bit earlier as we head past the go-karting track. We'll head back down in the bus stop again. It's going to be the end of lap number 2. And Fight Me Now Bot's starting to open up a nice little gap here. I think everybody's starting to fall into line. He'll set a new fastest lap as well, as LSR has also retained the fastest lap point. You got Mudev diving into the pits here early. So the Haas, I think, picking up a little bit of damage. Looks like BXT going to follow. But it's a comfortable lead now for Fight Me Now Bot, who on heavy fuel seems a lot more comfortable, especially getting underway, than perhaps Lurka did. That got up to 3/4 of a second now. Of course, Lurka will have that DRS advantage to close up that little bit. Whereas we saw them really go side by side in this braking zone, it's now a half a second difference. So Fight Me Now Bot with a lot of pace in that middle sector, really trying to make things happen. Giannis and Vanzantino, meanwhile, going at it. Giannis able to stay in front as he tries to hunt down Kaname. Of course, got a bit of battling further down the order. Of course, Vanzantino will certainly have a steward's review going into next weekend for the incidents in qualifying. But Giannis doing pretty comfortably here, sitting in 8th for the moment. Again, Indian in a very solid spot as well. Bobby with some very bold moves early, now trying to hunt down B-Tom. Again, still so many things can happen as we're only on lap number 3 of 22 here. Of course, we'll take a quick look at some of the position changes on the opening lap. Of course, Fight Me Now Bot and Lurka have each swapped spot. Bobby and Kaname have really swapped spots in on the totem pole, as they're up and down 3 respectively, whereas Drew Mellon and Indian have largely held position. And then a couple, no other real big gainers up there. The McLaren's not having a great day, both of them dropping spots. Vanzantino, Jordan, and Giannis, though, all gaining a couple of spots. Same with Froggy, Riatudo, and Hitch. As again, everybody trying to battle, trying to stick with the packs here early. Of course, Giannis at risk here of falling away from Kaname, potentially losing DRS. Yellow flags. That is for McLaren. That is for William Houlet, who's gotten spun down at turn 1. So not sure what happened there, but Houlet has gone round. So I think definitely some frustration there for the McLaren. As Vanzantino now will get by Giannis. So it's now an Alpine 7-8. And hopefully the connection here isn't too bad today. I know with me both streaming and hosting, there's a bit of a concern here, but we seem to be okay for the moment. Of course, lap number 4, Lurka has done a nice job, has closed up that gap a little bit. B-Tom staying very close as well. But the top 3 separated by no more than a second. And of course, the top 7 all within DRS range. Vanzantino now, of course, a little bit of extra clean air might help him try to track down his teammate of Kaname. Again, now work to the likes of Giannis, the likes of Jordan, who then have, stay within range. Hopefully, though, Giannis, again, starting to struggle a little bit here. But again, lap number 4. And that's Fight Me Now Bot, who's led since lap number 2. Continuing to lead is Mudev, picking up a 3-second time penalty now. He'll join Milano on that front. Again, still fighting now about to the lead. We'll start lap number 5, so about halfway into this first stint, and the Williams very close now as we head into turn number 1 here at the source. And I've got the long Kemmel straight as well, which gives Lurka all sorts of opportunities to try and get that move redone. The Williams trying to track down the Ferrari. Remember, B-Tom behind will be scoring for V-Carb today. We got an Aston Martin around. Milano's made a mistake down at turn 1. Here comes the Williams, Lurka to the inside. And here on lap number 5, he will retake the lead after starting from pole position. So the Williams now back up into first place and will lead this pack for more than likely the rest of this lap. Meanwhile, a little bit further behind, the likes of B-Tom has been able to make a little bit of a breakaway from Bobby. And Bobby, I think, has been, going big attack here in the opening stages. May also be dropping back a little bit, trying to pick up a little bit of clean air, especially as we make our way through this twistier middle sector. Just trying to maybe cool down the tires a little bit. As, again, we saw so many aggressive moves from Bobby early. He started to close back up with the front. So you can see Fight Me Now Bot having to drop back a little bit. Again, just going from that clean air into that wake of a car ahead. You really have to refine some of those braking points, some of those turn-in points. You can't carry as much speed as you like. And again, compared to past games, that's much more of a factor in this year's game. So something important there to keep in mind. I think if you're Fight Me Now Bot and B-Tom as well, is a bit of a lockup there from Lurka. I think an interesting dynamic you have to keep in mind is that, especially if you're Fight Me Now Bot, it's crucial that you stay ahead of B-Tom because, again, as Giannis makes his way back past Vanzantino, meanwhile, it's Milano who's had another incident. Again, pack remains largely tight. Jordan and Froggy Boggy go battle here. As they're battling for 10th, Lurka's starting to make a bit of a breakaway. So we'll look at the battle between it's now between Froggy Boggy and Hitch down the Kemmel Straight. Of course, both drivers will have DRS, but here comes the Sauber looking to the outside. Of course, not a battle for points, but a battle just before the points. Froggy can give him a bit of a squeeze, but going to be squeezed out by Jordan a bit defensively. Of course, nothing untowards there. You got a three-way battle going on for the final point scoring position. Here's Froggy with a nice little run. He'll go to the inside. Big slide behind from Hitch as he locks the rear. But it's Froggy Boggy with a very nice, very opportunistic move. Maybe catching Jordan a little bit napping there. As Froggy looking to try and replicate some of his teammate Lurka's successes here in the opening round. As he's now up into the points, has an opportunity to try and chase down Vanzantino. The top 7 have really made a breakaway here. It's Kaname on hards. I think being a big outlier here. They got Bobby and Indian kind of working together here. You got the Red Bulls in with a shot. You got Juramelon, who's meanwhile jumped up into 4th. So Bobby potentially starting to lose a bit of pace. Potentially going a little bit more aggressive. That's allowed the Sauber back through. Bit of a lockup there though for Jerome, and that's going to risk him falling out of DRS now. Again with an opportunity now to make a breakaway here on lap number 7. Jordan, meanwhile, is diving into the pits early. So Jordan will dive into the pits. He thinks those tires are done. So it'll be lap number 7. And we'll see the Racing Bulls diving into the pits. Milano again dealing with trouble. So potentially some tire overheating there. As you can see him running very wide. I think Milano just trying to stay in this. He actually doesn't have a front wing. So again, if you're Milano, it's just trying to stay in it, hope for a safety car at this stage. Jerome, meanwhile's fallen well off of that front pack. So it's Lurka, Bot, and B-Tom, who now can pretty much race on their own as a 2-second gap to the cars behind. Hitch and Hogrider now battling as Hitch has fallen off that battle a little bit. Yellow flag in sector 2. Crazy Riatudo is hit the wall. He's out of this race. How is that not bringing out a safety car? Milano will retire as well. How is that crash not brought out a safety? Okay. I need to check something here because that crash, safety car is on reduced as was requested by our Group 1 drivers last year. But I have no idea how that incident does not bring out a safety car. But Riatudo and Milano both out of this race. So we will continue to race on here on lap number 7. Again, front 3 with a bit of a breakaway. It's a 2.5 second gap behind to Jerome Ellen. You got the Red Bulls potentially looking to battle. You got Indian looking to make a move, and I think got connected there a little bit with Bobby. As the Red Bull, with a bit of oversteer, they're trying to defend, and the Red Bulls collide. Bobby and Indian collide, and that will bring out a virtual safety car, and now it's contact again between Bobby and Kaname. What happened there? Bobby just seemingly on a warpath and has killed both his teammate and made contact with Kaname. Does the Alpine have damage is, I think, my biggest question. His teammate certainly does. It looks like Kaname has escaped without significant damage. But a virtual safety car here on lap number 8 will briefly neutralize racing and perhaps give a couple of these drivers an opportunity to get back into it. Kendrick's Hogrider and Hule will all get cheap pit stops. So Kendricks is in a good spot. Jordan will retire from the session. But we'll get back underway here on lap number 8. Again, maybe an opportunity for a couple of drivers to fuel save. But certainly an odd incident there. And I think, I think Indian not meaning to, meaning to put a little bit of pressure on his teammate. Bobby perhaps taking exception to it. Is Indian's now dropped all the way to 10th. But I think certainly one for the stewards to review. For lap 8, and we are back to full track, green flag racing. Again, the front 3 with a big breakaway now. Jerome, meanwhile, has pulled out a second from Bobby. Again, that was a strange incident to bring out the virtual safety car. And of course, really, really screwed over his teammate. And you got a number of cars diving in. You got Kaname diving in. You got Bobby will follow. B-Tom as well will dive into the pits here on lap number 9. Slap on the hard compound tire, just trying to get that undercut going. Of course, considering how close he's racing with Fight Me Now bot, certainly a requirement there for the man who was in third. And we'll see how much of an undercut B-Tom can put out. He'll come out just behind MK7 Hitch. As Indian also going to have to dive into the pits. Jerome still out in front. He'll be 8th on track. And of course, you got a car on a bit of a charge behind. It's the Aston Martin of Orabang, who's just going to come out with this pack. As Bobby with a very nice pit entry there. As he'll now have all sorts of energy to give a push on Jerome. And Bobby will fly through. So that will be 4th on track for the Red Bull. Of course, his teammate will have to recover there. And I think definitely disappointed because Indian was having a great race on debut. But again, it's now dropped to 14th. And has a long way to fight back. I think Kendricks is in a really interesting spot in 11th. Of course, getting that cheap stop. Of course, he's got Froggy Boggy right on him. But Kendricks getting about a perfect opportunity to dive into the pits. We'll see how long he can make those hards last. Of course, a long-time Group 2 man. And can dice it up with Group 1 every now and again. We'll have to wait and see. But now, if you're Lurker and Fight Me Now bot, what do you do here on lap number 9? Is it time to dive in the pits? Limit that B-Tom undercut, and both drivers will. So Lurker and Fight Me Now bot both dive in the pits here at the end of lap number 9. And of course, I believe both drivers certainly to the good on fuel. Kaname, of course, will stay out, as will Giannis. So they're both going to try to extend. Here comes B-Tom through the final corner. Vanzantino picks up a 10-second penalty for speeding in the pits. Here comes B-Tom down the pit straight. Where will Lurker and Fight Me Now bot appear on that right-hand side as we head through La Source? Will they pop out in time? They will not, but they're not far behind the reigning multi-time Group 1 champ, as they're both comfortably within a second here. And this battle, of course, will continue. But B-Tom with the effective lead for the first time in this race. As he looks to continue, you can see Fight Me Now bot looking to try and get those tires up to temperature. And it's going to be a big advantage here for B-Tom, as those hearts are going to be way more lit up than the cars behind him. So will that be a struggle for Lurka, for Fight Me Now Bot, to really stay in this fight? Bobby and Jerome will almost certainly continue to battle throughout the rest of this stint. Giannis, I think, going comfortably, but of course he's, again, at a bit of a risk of getting undercut here. So we'll see how some of that continues. Again, lap 10 of 22 at just about, we're about a lap and a half now from the halfway mark of this race. And it's certainly been an interesting one, and not one without controversy either. Kadame and Giannis still yet to make their pit stops. But already you can see the pack starting to spread out a little bit. As I think, the drivers who you'd expect to be the protagonists in the Drivers' Championship already starting to make themselves known. I expect Kaname will be in that conversation as well. You can see Giannis diving into the pits there in the background. But B-Tom, Lurka, Fight Me Now Bot, I think all going to be interesting guys to keep an eye on. Can we see the light? Again, obviously we saw that incident for Bobby, but we could definitely see Bobby and Jerome be in the fight for race wins. Indian, again, who had a really good opening to this race, could be a guy to keep an eye on. Could Giannis be a potential interesting driver to keep an eye on, even just in an individual fight, not necessarily for the championship? Lap 11, this also will give us a good chance to take a look once again at some of the position changes. Of course, keep in mind that everybody behind, the top four will gain once. Lurker's only down a spot, Fight Me Now Bot's only down a spot. B-Tom's up 2. Hule will retire from the pit, so his race is done. So already our 4th retirement so far. So definitely sad to see that as we hit the halfway mark. But yeah, again, Hule just not close enough to the front of this pack to really justify carrying on. But Orabang still yet to make a stop, but up 10 spots. Kendricks has had a hell of a race. He's up 8 spots. Again, timing that safety car to perfection. I think going to be a tall order due to the pedigree of this field for Kendricks to hold on and try and walk away from this race with points. But again, anything could happen. There could still be more incidents. We could get a safety car. We could get a virtual safety car in this one. Still, 11 laps of racing left to go. But hopefully, if you are watching, you have been enjoying this so far. As Kaname will come to the line, this will push us past the halfway point and should put us right into that window for Kaname to swap off onto the medium compound of tire as fuel loads continue to get lower. Orbang as well, also going for that hard to medium one stop. Again, lap number 12. Again, been very tight racing, very clean racing as well between these top 3. I think you got Bobby and Jerome Mellon just kind of continuing to push on here. You got a bit of a pack forming in this battle for 7th. You also got Kendricks about 2 seconds back trying to make things happen. But, Orbang is kind of holding up Vanzantino a little bit here. Van, of course, does have that 10-second time penalty. Yellow flag back in Sector 1. That's for Hog Rider, who's potentially had an that is for Hog Rider, who may have had an incident there with MK7. Hard to tell exactly what happened here, but DRS for the Alpine of Vanzantino. He'll go to the inside. I believe the Mercedes of Giannis will follow him through. So that's Orabang dropping 2 spots. Froggy Boggy, meanwhile, will slide past Kendricks and up into the points. So that's Froggy up into 10th. So he's got an opportunity to chase some drivers down. You got Giannis looking to the inside. Is going to beat and barge with Vanzantino as he gets up on the curb. I imagine Vanzantino not going to be super happy about that, but Giannis getting aggressive there, getting on that curb, and getting his way through. And so now it's the Mercedes with some clear air, and so we'll see how much he can take advantage of, how much words are hard, how much he can take advantage of it. Again, number of drivers continuing to push on. Still, lots to go. Kaname in the bus stop. Is this going to be the lap we see the Alpine dive into the pits? Not yet. He still likes that hard compound tire. As we'll start lap number 13, though I imagine at this point, almost certainly, is going to be the time he dives into the pits. B-Tom and Lurka continue to battle. There's Fight Me Now Bot looking for a bit of a switchback. Does he have the power, though? The Williams trying to give him the squeeze as both cars with DRS. They head into this turn 1 hairpin. Of course, Fight Me Now Bot going to be working to keep Lurka tight. A bit of a slide there is maybe a little bit of contact. But that's going to lead to both losing some time to B-Tom. as that gap opens up, but not enough to lose DRS. But Fight Me Not still all over the back of the man who was on pole position to start this race. Is effectively now in second. Who's going to have more top speed, though, as we head down the chicane at the end of the Camel Straight? It's going to be Lurko still holds on. Jerome Mellon, meanwhile, using DRS advantage. He'll slide up past Bobby Lyons and back up into 5th place. As you know, the Sauber and the Red Bull have continued to go at it. Got Van Zantino closing, just not quite enough to get past. And Froggy Boggy, meanwhile, will jump up into 9th. Of course, Kendricks is keeping a little bit of pace and is in the points as of right now. You can see Orabang really starting to struggle here. Here comes Kendricks to the inside to try and get himself back up into the points, and he will try and get it done. Orabang, though, going to try to stick it around the outside, but not quite going to have the grip to get that done. So it is Kendrick still up in points. It's Hitch about 2.6 seconds back. Hog Rider and Indian continuing to push behind. Again, Van Zantino with that 10-second is going to be very crucial as this race continues. I think you saw Fight Me Albot on the previous lap, just trying to get a move done, trying to make sure he's the one that gives Beaton the fight. Kaname still staying out here. So if you're Kaname at this point, are you trying to hold out for a safety car? That may be what the Alpine is doing. So I would expect at this point that he would have swapped off that hard compound tire. Again, losing about a second a lap right now. But how much does he think I think the interesting question is, how much does Kaname think those fresh tires are going to work? Is he kind of keeping an eye? Because he's got to come out in 6th if he really wants to have a shot at this race win or even just a podium here in the opening round. Meanwhile, the three-way battle here up at the front continues. Again, turning into a bit of a chess match, I'd imagine. So again, at this stage of the race, you got a bunch of drivers really trying to just fall into that rhythm. You're not battling for points, or you're not battling for the end of the race just yet. So you're just trying to put yourself in the best position possible. It's really only the three of you, Beaton, Lurka, and Fight Me Now Bot here, up at the front here on lap number 14. Orabang, meanwhile, will get past Kendricks as Orabang's gone round. So Orabang I think it's just trying to get something done there. May have just missed his braking zone. I'm not sure if he just got on the grass or what happened to the Aston Martin. But he's lost his front wing. So I imagine he must have just missed his braking zone. Not sure what happened there. Meanwhile, Froggy Boggy has picked up a 3-second time penalty for track limits. Giannis, meanwhile, continues to run pretty comfortably here in 7th. Van Zantino, again, just looking to keep the pressure on. Bobby pushing away, staying within the toe of Jerome. Lurka, meanwhile, is closed pretty tightly to the back of B-Tom. We'll jump to this battle in a second as Bobby continued to close within 3/10, but not able to get something done. And I think, you can see Bobby trying to set up the bus stop there, trying to get that better exit. But still Jerome with a good drive off. The gap there is 4.5. Lurka, meanwhile, right on the back of B-Tom. That gap is 4/10. And of course, B-Tom without the DRS advantage. Konami, meanwhile, has continued to stay out. That may be what the offense is. Yeah, how much time does he have? Lurka to the outside on B-Tom. He'll get that done in the braking zone. Bobby, meanwhile, back there for 5th. Will get it done. But Lurka, meanwhile, back up into the net lead of this race here on lap number 15, and still lots of laps of racing left to go. But now Lurka taking over control of this race. There's only 4 different leaders in this one, and they are your current top 4. But they'll blast away down the hill. Again, lap number 15. Only time racing was broken up was by a brief virtual safety car after Indian and Bobby Lyons, today's Red Bull teammates, as Indian is in a reserve capacity, came together. It was a very odd-looking incident coming down the pit straight. But still, lots that could happen, lots that could unfold over the remainder of this race. Of course, got Bobby and Jerome continuing to go at it. Van Zantino, not too far off the end of Giannis. Kendricks just trying to hold on, trying to stay within range. Kaname finally diving into the pits here on that number 15. And what is the decision from the Alpine driver? 4 tires. He's held onto these hards for a very long time. And I think the interesting thing is, where is he going to get released? It is mediums. It's medium tires for Kaname, who does get released here, and looks like he'll still be in a very nice position ahead of Giannis. Gap was 18 seconds behind, and he's going to come out very comfortably. Of course, has that shortcut through turn 1. But Kaname now released on very fresh medium tires. He sees the Sauber out ahead of him. And now if you're Kaname, it is full charge from here to the end of this race. And I think on that fresh set of tire, the battle for the lead, B-Tom has closed up, Fight Me Now Bot, rather, has closed up nicely to B-Tom. As everybody continues. Still, is there going to be a wrench thrown? Is there going to be a blue and pink wrench thrown into this battle for the lead by the time we get to lap number 22? It's going to be something to keep an eye on. We'll go ahead and go to the leader gap momentarily. Kaname has 10.8 seconds to make up. Yellow flags. That is for Froggy Boggy, who is in the wall. He will recover that car and get back going, but major front wing damage for the Williams. And he's going to continue to spin the wheels and go into the wall again. And I think definitely frustration there for the Williams, as he drops down now to 13th. And his day almost certainly done. But no safety car there for that incident. Again, everybody carrying on. Again, Lurka starting to open up a nice little gap. Yellow flag in sector 2. Froggy Boggy going to retire off the track, and I believe that will not bring out a safety car, but that will be our 5th retirement of this session. Also, fast lap as of right now would go to Fight Me Now Bot, who would pick up that extra point. And it is a comfortable fast lap. He's got about half a second on anybody right now. We'll see if that changes with Kaname pushing away right now. Still a lot that could happen. 6 laps left to go now, and it is the man who started on pole leading this race of Lurka. Again, you got B-Tom and Bot still there in the background, still in with a shot, doing everything they can to give themselves the best opportunity possible. Indian, meanwhile, has gotten his way back up into 11th place. Van Zantino, meanwhile, will pick up 3 seconds due to track limits as Giannis has started to make a breakaway from him. And 7th would be a very good result here in Group 1 for the man from Greece. Again, continue to push on. And, again, this battle here is going to be very interesting between Bobby, Jerome, and Kaname. So if you're Kaname, if you want any shot at this victory, you have to dispatch both these drivers very, very quickly. So you got to imagine that the drivers at the front will start to battle pretty quickly, but B-Dom's maybe starting to struggle a little bit as that gap opens up. Though, again, we could be seeing a bit of gamesmanship here from B-Tom, trying to back off that front, that rear wing, rather, of Lurka during this stint, trying to make sure that he is not, too much of a victim of dirty air, that he keeps those tires alive as long as possible and makes that move on the final lap. Meanwhile, for 4th, Kaname has caught this fight. Of course, top 7 without penalties. As Kaname sets a fast lap of the race that would pick him up a bonus point. Big lockup there for Bobby into turn 1. So he got slowed down a bunch. That's put Jerome on a pretty poor line. Caused that gap to open up. Well, that opened the door for Kaname now. As through Radion and Eau Rouge we go. Wing's going to open on the Sauber and the Alpine. They're going to come with a charge. The Sauber to the inside. Bobby going to defend. It's going to be Kaname to the inside as well. Kaname going to try to get both. Bit of contact there. It is Jerome into 4th. Kaname into 5th as Bobby will drop 2 spots due to DRS. Very close to a big incident there. But all the drivers managing to keep it clean. Meanwhile, Lurka continues to hold the lead here on lap number 18. But if you're Kaname, you're continuing to get held up here. You really want to get this move done before the end of Sector 2. You don't want to be held up all the way down to the bus stop, because this is where your fresh tires are going to be the most impactful. And now you're stuck in the middle of a bit of a sandwich here. Again, 4th would still be a very solid result from this opening race. You do 12-round seasons. as of right now. So that's something important to keep in mind. As Indian picks up a 3-second time penalty, so could that be a factor in the battle for points? Oh, I'm starting to cramp up. There's my legs starting to fall asleep. Luckily, I am not. Across the line, 4 laps to go now, and it's still Lurka with a very comfortable lead, just keeping B-Tom and Bot at a decent arm's reach there. As again, the drivers behind will now start lap 19 of 22. And I think if you're Kaname, yeah, you're trying to time this up. You're trying to get this done on the Camel Straight. Trying to use as little energy, as little tire life as possible. Because once you get past Jerome, it is full push, just trying to close that gap. Fight Me Now Bot, meanwhile, has, I think, made a mistake down at turn 1, as that gap's opened up a little bit. Though again, could this be gamesmanship from the Ferrari? Trying to get some extra points. Here comes Kaname with a charge. He'll go to the outside of Jerome. He'll keep this Sauber tight. And he'll go to the outside and get that done by the time they get into the chicane. So Kaname back up into 4th, and now with clear air. But an 8-second gap is a lot to make up over these final 3.5 laps now. But certainly do not count Kaname out. Fight Me Now Bot is meanwhile starting to really fall off the back of those cars ahead. Could this become a 2-horse race as we come down to the wire? As I think B-Tom and Lurka potentially starting to drop the hammer a little bit. Trying to make a bit of a breakaway. So it's Fight Me Now Bot maybe started to run out of gas. Not in terms of what's actually in the car, but just in terms of how Lurka and B-Tom just found that little extra gear. Yellow flag first in Sector 2. That's your Hog Rider who's gone round. Looks like he'll recover and get back underway, but certainly disappointing to see another driver. Or, I don't want to say disappointing as, disappointing for Hog Rider. As he drops now potentially down out of the points, but it'll be 3 laps left to go. Fight Me Now Bot has done a nice job managing to close back up. But as of right now, that's still not enough. 43.775 on that most recent lap for the Alpine. Big lockup, though, into turn 1. Of course, he can afford that with the amount of tire life that he has remaining. Jerome and Bobby, meanwhile, continue to duel behind as they battle over the 2-point difference there between 5th and 6th place. Of course, every single point is going to matter the further down the order you get. And the more scarce do you think points will be? Here comes Bobby. Jerome defending the middle of the circuit. Is Bobby going to make the move? No, he'll hold back for right now, trying to get that done. Maybe a little bit of contact at the rear. But it will remain Bobby in 6th. Hog Rider, unfortunately, will retire after that mistake. So definitely unfortunate to see both McLarens out of this one. Definitely an unfortunate start to season number 12. But we'll continue to push on here. Again, 3 laps left to go. And Kaname really has not made big inroads over the course of this lap to the cars ahead. Still 7.3 seconds. And I think the DRS of the cars ahead really proving to be a factor at this stage. As Lurka just with tons and tons of pace here. Has just kind of really, has really dragged B-Tom and Fight Me Now Bot along with him. It's led to that gap. Just not coming down as much as Kaname perhaps would have wanted, would have expected. But into the bus stop for the third to last time, as we'll head on to lap 21, and it's still the way it's been throughout the entirety of this race. Lurka, B-Tom, Fight Me Now Bot, all going to be going at it here. And now is when you get into the gamesmanship. When do you make your move? How close can you be to try and make that move? And it's really 3/4 of a second between all of the drivers here. It's going to be very, very tight. And if you're B-Tom, do you give yourself, do you trust yourself more in attack or defense? And it's going to be trusting himself more on the offense for B-Tom. He's going to give himself 1 lap to really try and get this move done. So we head to the top of the hill for the penultimate time. The gap's 0.6. So we'll have to keep that in mind once we start to blast back down. Still so much that could happen. BXT going to dive in the pits and I imagine retire from this one. We may see soft tires from the Mercedes trying to pip that fastest lap away from the Alpine of Kaname. It's 18 laps on the hards and it is going to be softs for BXT. So we'll see the Mercedes try and steal that honor away from Kaname, who again just has not made massive inroads here. I think certainly a very good race to still come away with what should be a very comfortable 4th place. But we'll see how some of this continues. Of course, battle further down the field as well. The battle for what will be 9th, the battle for 10th after penalties, potentially 9th as well, depending on how close Kendricks can remain to Indian and Hitch. As we come to the final lap of this race, into the bus stop for the penultimate time. The gap still 6/10 between B-Tom, who again will be swapped to V-Carb in the actual results, and Lurka in the Williams. Fight Me Now Bot still in there with a chance. Who's going to come out on top? 1 lap left to go. And we'll head through La Source for the final time. And it's a good exit there from Lurka. And we're going to be seeing all of the energy dump from the Ferrari, dump from the Williams as we head through Radiano Rouge onto the Camel Straight. That gap still at 6/10. Lurka doing a great job managing that gap behind, making sure he does everything possible. Red light flashing, though, on the Williams means that Ferrari should have a little bit extra power, but not going to close up enough with DRS advantage. He's only going to close up to about 3/10 there. Again, driver's going to be very close. And your B-Tom, how desperate do you get? How much do you want this win in the opening round? Bobby, meanwhile, has tried to make a move past Jerome Mellon. There's contact, though, as both drivers go off. So we'll have to keep an eye on this battle for 5th, as Jerome defending very aggressively. Bobby trying to go around the outside. It's a big duel between the Sauber and the Red Bull, battling over 5th place. Contact again there, and once again Bobby with an incident. And that's going to be Jerome sent wide. That'll almost certainly go to steward's review. As Jerome tries to recover there, Giannis will get past him. But up at the front, into the final sector now, and it's all full speed from here to the end of this race. It's Lurka now with an 8/10 gap as he started to pull away. Can Fight Me Now Bot do anything here to change the order? And again, all the drivers push into the end of this race, into the bus stop, 2 corners left to go. Kendricks picks up a 3-second time penalty, so that could affect these final results. Through the bus stop, here comes the cars. They emerge out of the chicane, and it's Lurka who will win the opening round here in Spa in a great race. It's going to be B-Tom in 2nd, Fight Me Now Bot in 3rd, Kaname with, I think, still a stellar race there. He will come away in 4th. I think definitely some steward's review to come here after Bobby getting in a couple of incidents, but he'll cross the line in 5th. It's Giannis on his full-time debut coming home in 6th, followed by Jerome Mellon. Of course, had a big battle there with Giannis at the end. End up coming together in Sector 2. It's going to be 7th for Jerome. Vanzantino should finish 8th. It's then going to be Indian, followed by Hitch. Kendricks not quite able to keep it clean off, but he will jump up into 10th thanks to the extra penalty from Hitch. Mudev and BXT then are the drivers we're last waiting on. Can BXT do anything about that fastest lap from Kaname? He makes his way through the final couple of corners. Orenberg, meanwhile, has retired up closer to the top of the circuit. So we'll keep an eye out for that fast lap. But congratulations, of course, to the Williams of Lurka here in the Season 12 opener, getting it done from pole position. And that fast lap point does get stolen away from Kaname at the death. But the Williams man is up top here in round 1. And again, a great result here to start us off. Again, if you're B-Tom and you're Fight Me Now Bot, you're certainly in there with a shout. But it's the Ukrainian on top to get us underway. Driver of the day as well. I believe that driver of the day is BXT, surprisingly, I think. Of course, I think that was benefited from him starting at the back. But Lurka, B-Tom, Fight Me Now Bot, Kaname, Bobby, Giannis, Jerome, Banzantino, Indian, and Kendricks are your top 10. So, of course, hopefully you have enjoyed this race. If you've stuck through it the whole time, definitely be sure to tune in tomorrow for some Group 2 and Group 3 action around the same circuit. And again, if you haven't done so, be sure to like and subscribe down below. Be sure you do that first. But, of course, next weekend for Group 1, we head to Imola for round 2. So got a very technical circuit as the second round and one of 2 Italian Grand Prix on this season's calendar. But again, hopefully you've enjoyed. Of course, I've been Vacant Haddock. Thank you for joining me. And until next time, we'll see you later. Have a good one.